Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 19th Humboldt County Association of Governments meeting. We're now in session, and we're adjourning as the HCOG board and convening as the Policy Advisory Committee. The PAC convenes to include representatives from Caltrans and HTA, although I see Caltrans. Hi, Kevin. But we don't have an HTA person today. For items specific to transportation. So with that, let's go on to public participation. This agenda item is reserved for matters not on the agenda that may be presented by the public over items which PAC has a say in or over which we have jurisdiction. So saying that, is there any member of the public who would like to address us on items not on the agenda? Seeing none and one shake of the head. I'll say thank you very much for that, and we will go on to the first item of action, which is the approval of the meeting record for August 15th. I know I wasn't there, so
I will move that we approve it.
I wasn't there. Susan wasn't there.
I will move that we approve it.
Thank you.
I was there.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that? No? Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And this brings us to the PAC action items, the first of which is a Caltrans 101 project cost increase. I know we've been looking at that quite extensively, and I know myself and Marcella had a pretty good discussion with Caltrans recently about this, and toss it to you, Marcella.
Thank you very much. The project manager for this is Jeff Pimentel. He unfortunately had an injury. Hopefully we can get an update and make sure it's not too serious. So he will not be here today, but Kevin, I think, has been informed on the latest information. But I want to begin with a mention of some progress being made. Our technical advisory committee met last Tuesday, and last Thursday. By Tuesday, Caltrans indicated that they could shaved off about $3.5 million more. So the estimate is now down to $20.7 million. And the other great progress is, as of this Tuesday, 2 days ago, the state has guaranteed that they will submit a programming document where they will take on 100% of the increase. So that was huge. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's just Caltrans proposing it. There's a process that will occur. There's a hearing on October 8th that I will attend, the ITIP hearing. And I just want to jump right now to your staff report, the fund estimate, table 2. You might have seen this in a prior staff report, but this tells us what funding is available to, and we have highlighted Humboldt's numbers as well as the interregional program. And the interregional program is the one that's going to cover this cost increase. I had mentioned before, but you'll see that HCOG doesn't have any funding on the books until 27, 28, and there are a few reasons for that. Last year, the state let us program more than which was the total target last time. So we were able to program 3.6 million more than what they thought our fair share was. And the reason they granted that is because some counties in the state save their money and just leave it on the table. You can see that in the first column, the base minimum. Those are counties that did not program all their funds last year, or 2 years ago. So we, as a regional transportation planning agency in a county, don't have any money to give, and we're thankful that Caltrans recognizes that. If you look down at the interregional row, their funding is not available until 24-25, so that's new funding. So the issue now is every county is going to be turning in their requests by December 15th. Ours will be 0, but there's 57 other counties. If there is some funding capacity in early years, I'm told that our project will have one of the highest priorities in terms of fitting in one of those slots. So worst case scenario, our project will get its cost increase funded in 2024, that'll push the project out, unfortunately. So there's a lot of waiting to do. I'm going to go to hearings and be in contact with the California Transportation Commission, and I will keep reporting to you every month as I learn more. So
Marcella,
yeah.
can you give me an idea of just a few of the programs that are that are projects that will be being put forward, even if they're not going to be funded?
You mean in our region?
Yeah.
The Technical Advisory Committee hasn't, we've met and discussed it. They're not proposing any new projects this year, mainly because there aren't any funds available.
Right.
And we also, we are requesting that Caltrans come up and pay 100%.
Yeah.
It wouldn't look so good if we said, okay, you pay 100% and then we're going to do these other projects. So I would assume that the decision maker would say, well, if you're willing to go in the hole for those other projects, that should go towards the interchange. So I don't think that
I would disagree.
that is absolutely this board's decision. We can't go much over what is under the maximum column. You can ask for an advance of even funds future out in the future. But the CTC, when they look at that, they look to see, is it going to reduce greenhouse gas? Is it on a state highway? They look at their priorities when they consider funding advanced projects. So we would have to have a really good project to compete with the cost increase. But that will be before this board. It is your decision. The Technical Advisory Committee will be discussing this in October. If they're ready then to forward a recommendation to the board, we'll bring it in October. But our deadline is December 15th to make that decision.
Thanks, Marcella.
Sure. So the progress was exciting. On the second page of the staff report, I have a list of things that I think that could potentially reduce the cost increase even more. Caltrans has initiated a contract with an outside agency to do a separate review of the geotechnical issues, which I'm really thankful for. So we'll hopefully find out something in a couple months on that. I have a concern about the construction support estimate. So Caltrans is estimating they need $9.5 million to oversee the interchange project. That's almost an 18% of the total cost of construction. So I have brought that up, and in the latest reduction, Caltrans did take $200,000 off. But, something I want to ask the project managers to come before you and explain why they need $9.5 million. It hasn't been explained to me yet. The third bullet point is a suggestion from the California Transportation Commission staff. They did ask if the district could begin the soil compaction process early using countywide funds so that we don't have to wait until 2021. Because, part of the cost increase is you have to wait for the soils to settle, and it's estimated it could be 18 months in between. So if they could start that process now, that would certainly save us some money on that. We also have a mitigation project that was pulled out of the construction project. Caltrans currently sees a $2.4 million savings in that program. The issue is the funds for the mitigation project is programmed in 1920 this year, and the CTC regulations indicate that you can't say, oh, I'm going to save $2.4 million, so put it on this other project next year. You have to, if you want to do things like that, you have to do it a year before. You can't make those changes in the year it's programmed. So I will be talking to the CTC if we can ask for an exception to the guidelines because these projects are linked. I just don't have a determination on that yet. So we're hoping we can shave off another $2.4 million. And then this is something that a member of the TAC recommended. There's a CalRecycle tire-derived aggregate program, and he indicated that he thought that Caltrans had benefited from that program when they did the Alton interchange. So I have asked the project manager to look into that. The highest amount that could be awarded for big projects is $750,000, depending on available funding. So I don't have a dollar amount. I don't know if this project would qualify or if Caltrans is even going to apply. But I wanted to keep that on the list so that we can at least consider it and have the discussion.
Did they put that in specs as to, for the contractor to look at the availability of that, you know?
Well, I think it would, I don't know if they would put it on the contractor to find those funds, yeah.
Front, you'd like to have it,
Right.
but they can't get a straight answer.
Well, they can apply for the grant, so that's what we're asking Caltrans to do, to apply. It's called the soft fill, which I need an engineer to explain that to me, but, so hopefully, when Jeff can come back to this meeting, he can address that. I haven't heard back. The other table in the staff report just shows the funding that's been dedicated to this project. So far, for the interchange, the half signal, and the mitigation, it's over $64 million. And then finally, at the TAC meeting, staff it was recommended that staff draft a letter for this board to consider. And I'll tell you, that was a different letter Thursday than Tuesday. So, so there is a letter attached. It's at your discretion if you would like to send it, if you would like to change it. But it was a recommendation from the Technical Advisory Committee.
That's this letter.
Yes. And with that, I can answer questions and let Kevin have a go with it.
Yeah, so I have an update from Jeff, but I think Marcella covered most of the stuff that Jeff outlined for me, but I did want to just add a little bit to a few things that were said. Marcella mentioned the cost reductions that were mentioned after the TAC meeting. Those reductions were accomplished by shortening the length of the approach fills to the Indianola undercrossing structure while maintaining the current design standards. With this reduction, the current shortfall, as Marcella mentioned, was $20.7 million. The Caltrans is in the process of initiating a task order with a consultant to look at the soil conditions and explore additional design options that we haven't yet considered to see if we can achieve additional cost reductions. The deadline to identify any additional cost reductions is December 1st, so that's the deadline that we're working on in order to meet the December 15th deadline for the final 2020 ITIP, which is the Interregional Transportation Improvement Program. And we will update HCOG when the results of this analysis have been received. As mentioned, the project programming request sent to headquarters on September 10th, showing an increase using ITIP funds to make up the difference in the increase in cost. At this time, the ITIP is not showing any capacity for cost increases, which is the current year for the delivery of the project. Caltrans Project Management will continue to monitor funding opportunities and work with headquarters programming and provide updates to HCOG as they unfold. Also was mentioned the wetland mitigation. The current Samoa parcels is in design with a target completion at the end of January 2020. It's a multi-agency meeting occurred recently between Caltrans, HCOG, the Coastal Commission, Army Corps of Engineers, Water Board, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Based on the input from this meeting, they're making adjustments to the design and plan to resubmit a draft design to the agencies by the end of October. This wetland mitigation project offsets impacts from the Eureka Arcata Corridor project as well as the Bay Trail North and South. Construction for the wetland mitigation project is targeted to begin next spring and summer. The focus of the mitigation, Samoa, in addition to the Samoa site, the project is funding Spartina removal, which is Jeff had mentioned at the last meeting. And those are my notes from Jeff.
Any questions or comments for Kevin or Marcella? Commissioner Avis?
Yeah, I know this is primarily about funding. What were the potential impacts based on the Coastal Commission's request for more information on sea level rise?
Well, I can let Kevin speak to that as well, but at the last Coastal Commission hearing, the original plan was that Caltrans would have to provide reports every year and really get active if there was certain events that triggers that happened. The Coastal Commission thought that the proposed timeline was way too long, so they shortened it by 5 years. It just is really telling Caltrans that we need to move on sea level rise. They're going to be participating with the County of Humboldt's project that they're planning right now. Caltrans is looking for funds to extend the area of that study, doing the same work in a larger area. And if Kevin has any other information, I can.
Yeah, I think just
Hand it over to him.
in general, as people drive up the safety corridor and they're looking at the water level, they're questioning how long will it take before the roadway becomes inundated, and what are the expectations, and how much are we spending on the project at this point versus elevating the roadway or something of that nature. And I'm just sort of trying to cast a long view of 25 years down the road, what to expect.
Well, the conditions were outlined in the coastal development permit that gives us Caltrans a deadline to come up with an adaptation plan by 2025. So working in the planning department, we are planning to staff up to begin working on a plan to meet that deadline. In terms of, from a planning perspective, thinking about this project in relation to the corridor as a whole, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars for an interchange project versus an adaptation project that will be at least in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's hard to compare the two when you're thinking about the amount of time and effort that's going to go into addressing sea level rise for the Eureka-Arcata corridor.
Is
It was
the
a real challenge to try and
right? Is the current
address it as
project
part of this project.
plan adaptable to what you might come up with for addressing sea level rise, so that the work that's being done now can easily be incorporated into something else down the road?
Yeah, so the design team has talked about some of the features that allow for the interchange to be adaptable.
Right.
So being able to remove the deck and then elevate it based on a future sea level rise condition.
Perfect.
That's some of the things that are part of the
Thank you.
design of the project.
That's all. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Caltrans is also replacing the Jacoby Creek Bridge, and they too have planned that to be adapted. And I'd just like to remind everyone that the Bay Trail that's going in is going to be the first line of defense. So that part of that project is going to protect the highway somewhat, and you just have to keep the planning process moving along and coordinating.
Any further? Okay, thank you. I like the letter. I think that it's been good working with each other and coming up with these solutions, identifying cost reductions, and being just a little bit more intensely aware of keeping it together. So I think this kind of just memorializes our concerns at the same time as keeping that relationship open. So I like that. Anyone else got any thoughts on this? Are we good with sending this letter?
Do you need a motion, or is it
Yeah,
consensus?
yeah.
And just want to give the public an opportunity as well.
Thank you, Marcella. Anyone in the public like to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. So, so the staff recommendation obviously is to deciding whether or not to send this letter, so I'll entertain a motion.
I will move that, I'm looking at, if there's language, I'll move that we submit this letter. Oh, there it is. I move the PAC recommend to HCOG board send a letter to Caltrans regarding.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I think we can just do yeah. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That will take us to our second item here, which is the Highway Infrastructure Program. And back to Marcella.
Thank you. So a surprise to most rural counties, there was a new funding program through the last federal transportation bill called the Highway Infrastructure Program. We didn't hear about it until this March, although the funds apparently were available last March, but that's really not too much of a concern. These funds have a pretty long period before they have to be requested. Not necessarily used up, but just requested from the federal government. So the Technical Advisory Committee discussed these funds. It's a little over $841,000. The discussion ended with a recommendation that the city of the city of Arcata and Fortuna work together, the Technical Advisory Committee members, look together on how they could make two projects that HCOG fund programmed in 2018 whole. So in 2018, HCOG devoted funding, STIP, State Transportation Improvement Funding, for the Old Arcata Road project and Fortuna Redwood Way, with the hope that they would be successful in the active transportation program. They both applied and were not successful. So you're left with either find money from somewhere and make that project whole, or take out your bike and ped components of the project. The representatives from both cities discussed it, and the city of Fortuna did decide not to move forward, and there were a couple of important reasons for that. One, there wasn't enough money to make their project whole, so they would also have to find half of it somewhere else. And the other thing is that these are federal funds, and that puts a lot of paperwork and cost associated with any transportation project. So currently, the Fortuna project is state funded. If Fortuna wanted to use some of these funds, they'd have to go back and get do a NEPA document to the national CEQA. And so all the money at this point is proposed to go to the Arcata project. The city has threw in some more money to make their project whole. It went from $400,000 of local money into $745,000. I don't know if that's before your board yet, but that's the proposal. There are a lot of requirements and conditions for these funds. There's a fact sheet that's attached to the staff report. And one important thing is that these funds cannot be used specifically for bicycle and ped projects. So the city will have to make sure when they turn in their invoices and paperwork that it's very clear that these funds are going for the road project. The STIP funds can go to a bike and ped. So I have been working with Caltrans. And if this board approves this recommendation from the TAC, then the next step is to work with headquarters and get it programmed into the federal programming document. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Well, I'll just comment that when I was reading the agenda item, it occurred to me, well, that's quite a bit of shuffling around of funds that's going to happen to ensure that, we're spending this here and that there, but I'm sure somebody can do it.
There is a way. So we I had meetings with the staff from Arcata as well as local assistants from Caltrans, and their recommendations have a different column in it, and to be very clear, there's a financial letter that has to be submitted when they ask for the funds. You make it clear there, and they're pretty good watchdogs.
Yeah.
So every time an invoice goes in, they will make sure that these funds are used appropriately.
Can we fund the roundabout with it?
Yeah, as long as, so the other issue here is that it can only be used on certain roads. So Old Arcata Road is eligible, but Jacoby Creek Road isn't. So if that roundabout is at Jacoby Creek, these funds can't touch that road because they're not a high enough level of road in the federal system. So we discussed that as well with local assistance, and we will make sure that these funds don't, because I do believe that a roundabout is proposed. Yeah, so it can fund everything that's on Old Arcata Road.
Any further discussion or questions? All right, and there's, I would be frank, there is no one in the audience. So I'm not going to play that game. We won't have public comment on that item. So I think we're at the stage of.
Can I make a motion? Yeah. I move that the PAC recommends the HCOG Board adopt Resolution 19-21 approving the programming of $841,250 of Highway Improvement Program funds to the City of Arcata for the Old Arcata Road Improvement Project, and direct staff to submit federal statewide transportation improvement programming request to Caltrans.
Second.
That's very poetic, so Arcata and Fortuna are working together, so,
Hey, it's happened before.
Yeah.
great. Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. That's great. So finally here on our action items, we have the statewide local streets and roads assessment contribution.
Yeah, so 4 years ago, there was a similar item before you. The state, Regional Transportation Planning Agencies, the League of Cities, and CSAC contribute to they hire a consultant and develop a report on the condition of roads all throughout California. It has been very valuable. It was used a lot with the threat to Senate Bill 1. And in 2015, the HCOG board approved dedicating $994 out of our Regional Transportation Improvement Program funding for this effort. This year it's a little less. Even though the cost of the reports have gone up, Rural Transportation Agency's contribution has gone down. When this was discussed at the Technical Advisory Committee, I was directed to contact headquarters to see if the contributions that each city in the county have to pay could also come out of these funds. I have not heard back from Sacramento yet. And in addition to that, it's my understanding that no one has received those letter requests for contribution. So we wouldn't know today a dollar amount to take out of RSTP. So before you today is the $807 for HCOG. We could be coming back with another request to contribute more out of the RSTP fund once I hear back from Caltrans and once the letters go out to all the cities in the county, if that's something that you'd be interested in doing.
So with CSAC helping, would they be just absorbing what their members do and we wouldn't get those?
Well, that's what our HCOG, our Humboldt County's TAC representatives were requesting. Instead of everybody else writing checks, why can't we just deduct it and make it easy for everyone? That I don't know if that's happened anywhere in the state yet. So we're asking if that can happen. But I don't have a dollar amount for the cities in the county. So I'd like to move forward with this item, and it may come back for your consideration in the future.
Any other questions?
When I looked at this, $807, I haven't seen that kind of number in this. Usually there's like a lot more zeros after that one, you know?
Well, I have to say, when I did the tax staff report, I did put 3 more zeros on accident. Yeah.
But it's actually a valuable report.
Yeah, if you haven't looked at it, there's a link in the staff report. It's wonderful.
So, anyone wish
I'll
to
make that
jump in on
motion.
that?
I'll make a motion, the PAC recommend HCOG Board adopt Resolution 1920 authorizing a contribution of $807 of Regional Surface Transportation Program funds for the ongoing California statewide local streets and roads needs assessment effort.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So I'll now entertain a motion to reconvene as the HCOG board.
I move we convene as the HCOG board and approve PAC recommendations.
And second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so we will, all of us in favor of reconvening?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? None? And here we are. So now we come to the staff and PAC members' report, and we'll hopefully be getting a report from Kevin on the last chance grade.
So the geotechnical investigations, Phase 2A, we mentioned it in previous meetings, it's ongoing. The next phase is 2B, which is more complicated, requires an environmental document, so that work is not going to be taking place until October of 2020. Of note, in November of this year, the California Transportation Commission will be having a town hall. They're coming up, and that will include a visit to some of the area projects, including Last Chance Grade. Also of mention is Biological Resources Working Group. This is one of the internal groups, well, internal to the project, but it includes resource agencies. It's a Caltrans effort to coordinate and facilitate with the resource agencies to continue to work on what the future mitigation is going to be for the project, which also looking at the next phase, which is the environmental phase. Currently, Caltrans is working to get a consultant on board, and they are, I believe, in the process of setting up interviews and then hopefully having a contract in place by this December. So that's the status of the project.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions or comments for Kevin?
I have a question. Did you have a date for the town hall meeting, and is that a town hall in Crescent City? Is that where it's going to be located?
I have another item on that I'll briefly speak to.
Okay.
Okey-doke.
Is this information, kind of brief notes on the progress available online, like a link for the last chance grade, the public constitution?
There is a website, lastchancegrade.com. I don't know if it gives you this kind of detailed update, but it gives you kind of the high-level overview of where the project is and information about what's going on.
I'll add, I can certainly get more information from you. And just as a reminder, HCOG does have a representative on the committee, and it's Gordon Johnson, who recently is back on the Rio Del Council. So it's exciting to have him back. But he does attend on our behalf, and he, after they do have their meetings, he does come and address the board to give us, everybody, an update.
Any further questions, Kevin, on that? Okay. So the next item then is the 101 Safety Corridor Supplemental Patrols, and you've got the informational report right here. Did you want to say anything about that, Mark?
Yeah, I have some fun facts.
Yeah.
Of the six arrests, 5 were for unlicensed, either unlicensed drivers or people on suspended licenses. 39 people were going over 65, 8 over 70. The top loser was someone from Arcata going 79 miles an hour. He was unlicensed and uninsured. 29 years old.
Wow.
The other losers of notice was a 29-year-old from Chula Vista going 76 and a 67-year-old from Eureka who lives in the corridor going 75.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I mean, that blows me away, actually. to think
I
that people
would
do
also
that.
like to mention that our contract with the Eureka Police Department, it was for a year. We do have a clause to continue through a mutual agreement. So I will be bringing something back to you next month. I did contact the Eureka Police Department. They say they're absolutely willing to continue. They can't do any more than they're doing, and I'll be working with the city manager to coordinate the extension, if this is what the board wants. I have a feeling I can read all your minds.
So actually, as part of this, and going back to one of my pet projects here, is the whole idea of the call boxes.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
potential at one point to be able to allocate those to more rural areas that don't
Yes.
have.
And-
Is there any way we can do that?
Yes, there is, and I have an RFP. I actually touched it today. I didn't open it on the computer, but it's on the top of my stack.
Okay.
It is about this thick, so a lot of work has been put into it, and it is all on me for not getting this done, but
Just the
tomorrow,
fact
I will, I'm gonna open it up and move it forward. We will be putting out an RFP and, looking at not only, repairing what we have and getting an updated contract for that, but looking at, highways 36, highway 96, and other county roads that are eligible as well. So we're going to have the consultant look at that. Another thing that Technical Advisory Committee asked is that they look at cell coverages, so maybe we can get a map to see where
Yes.
cell coverages
That's
are.
a great
and
idea. Yeah. So, so if you guys will just indulge me for a minute, the concept then would be that they could apply for it in the rural areas. Who would do the upkeep, or does it require?
We have a contract. Currently, it's with Case Systems that HCOG has a contract.
Perfect.
Yes, HCOG's the Service Authority Board. So,
Excellent. Good.
More control and power than you knew.
I got a question and to follow up from Paul Patino's request
no, I
about
wasn't here last month.
the CHP reporting.
Oh, yes, Philip did inquire with the CHP, and we were told that they'd really have to go through every single piece of paper to get stats for us for the work they're doing on 299, or on 96 currently, and 36. So we didn't ask the CHP to take out time to go through papers, unfortunately. Maybe we can work something from this point on so that they can maybe track it, but
Remind me
We
what
did
they
interact.
were gonna track?
just kind of like what Eureka does, how many incidents and things like that.
Okay, similar, okay.
Right.
I think the fundamental aspect is that we actually do have them out there making these arrests and sending the message. But we do have some stats in these reports.
Mhm.
Okay. All righty. Where are we? Oh, we're on to the last item.
Yeah.
Did you want anything?
Well, I do have just a reminder that November 6th is the date of the town hall meeting for the California Transportation Commission. HCOG's been allotted 5 to 10 minutes to speak to the commission. I've asked anyone at the TAC, and I just want to extend that invitation to any elected official who wants to go. There could possibly be a helicopter tour, and if there is an elected official that is interested, certainly let me know and I can get you on that list. They're not sure if it's going to happen or not, because it turns out some people are afraid to get on the helicopter. But I did inquire if HCOG could have a seat or two, and so they told me they'd let me know. So if anyone is interested in going, you can, if you want to go speak to the CTC, you're also welcome to do that as well. The last time they were here was 2009. So they might be coming here someday. So
Primarily for last chance grade.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, they're going to do another tour of Highway 199 as well, but last chance grade was.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I'd probably be interested, but,
Yep.
let's see if they'll let it happen.
Okay.
But
If anyone else, just let me know.
It's good to be able to be where the CTC is, and not,
Right, and I don't know how many members, how many commissioners will come up. Usually you get 2 or 3.
yeah. Okay, great. Okay, well, I believe we have gone through this in record time, which is excellent, and done some good work, and we are adjourned.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.